With week 2 in the books, Jamie and I put together our GG Sports Podcast week 3 power rankings. Let's see where our Vikings ended up.
Let's go.
After a wild week 2 of the NFL season, a lot of movement in these power rankings, man. I feel like there's a lot of teams that moved down. There's a ton of odd performances all the way around. I still feel like going into week 3, we don't know anything yet. So this was actually pretty tough to put together. Some spots were easy, but overall, these were hard. A little bit difficult. But like I said, too early to tell for a lot of these teams. Yeah. So we're kind of just going off our gut, going with what we feel like. And yeah, anything else to say before we jump in?
Just to thank everybody for watching the GG Sport podcast of the Minnesota Vikings. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, get notifications for more of our videos. Yeah, let's just jump right in here now.
All right, sounds good. So GG Sports Podcast, week 3 power ranking, starting off with number 32, the Houston Texans falling down from 28. So Houston, of course, started off week 1, looked really good in the first half against the Colts. Colts came back. The game ended in a tie. This week against Denver, just not a lot going for this team. This was a team that a lot of people were surprised last week by their performance. Of course, you had the outlier performance from O.J. Howard at tight end last week. And this week, it's just, this is the Texans team we all expected to see, losing to the Broncos 16-9. Yeah, it's a close game against a team like the Broncos, which we'll talk about them later, obviously. But I don't know. Overall, I'm really not feeling it with this Houston team. I think 32 is a fair spot for them, unfortunately. Yeah. But is what it is. Like I said, everybody thought they're going to be bad this year. Get a high draft pick at your quarterback, build around them, see what happens. So
definitely
32, Houston Texans. Moving on.
So 31, we have the Carolina Panthers. Baker lost to the Browns last week, his old team. And again, he didn't do a ton. 14-29, 145 yards and a touchdown. Christian McCaffrey had 15 carries for 102 yards, which was a positive. But again, they lost to the Giants, who were not supposed to be a good team. But maybe the Giants are on the rise, and we just don't know. We'll dig into them a little bit later. But yeah, man, I mean, the 0-2 against two not that great of teams in the Browns and the Giants. Like I said, maybe Giants are better than we expected. But still, I mean, nothing to run home about. They're not showing anything. Baker's coming in and not showing anything really. He's showing he's not that quarterback that a lot of people think, since he's one of those guys, kind of like Kirk Cousins or something, where half the people think he's going to be really good and half the people thinks he's a bust or whatever. Yeah. But so far, he's looking like he's not going to come in and help Carolina do much more here. So
I think Matt Rule's on a short leash over there. So
yeah. So,
number 30, Chicago Bears. Yeah, they gave us they tickled our fancy a little bit, as you would say, on the terrible field in Soldier Field week 1 against San Francisco. This week against the Packers, we saw the team we all expected to see. The offense, I hate to say Vikings of old, because this actually looked like the Vikings of last night, to where just offensive ineptitude. Defense tried to hold them in as long as they could. They played pretty well to start, but by middle of the second quarter, they let Aaron Rodgers in the running game have their way with them. And then, like I said, on offense, they couldn't get anything going. That offensive line is bad. Justin Fields, the jury's still out on him. Receiver-wise, he just doesn't have any time. His running game is pretty weak behind him. So Bears are not a good football team. Down from 27 this week. This is the Chicago Bears team we all expected to see. So unfortunate for them, but we'll see what they do in the future. Matt Eberflus is showing not to be that guy yet at head coach. So we'll see. But
Agreed. The Falcons, surprisingly, an 0-2 team moved up this week at 29, and that has more to do with the other teams that we put down. And the main reason I think we put the Falcons up is because they should have beat the Saints, who did make Tampa Bay struggle a little bit, and then obviously had the big comeback against the Falcons. And then even this week, they were getting killed by the Rams, but they did kind of start putting it together later on. And I do like, you didn't see a lot from the run game. Mariota, I'm not sure if he's the answer. I think Ritter's going to come in at some point. At least it would be exciting to see him come in. And we'll probably talk about another rookie, actually a couple more rookies while we go down this list that actually might see some starting positions soon here. Yeah. But one good positive thing is it looks like Drake London is it's looking like he's
That
was the right pick and the right guy and that receiver. On the opposite side, you're not seeing as much from Kyle Pitts this year so far. I think he only had like one catch. What was it? 2 catches for 19 yards. So we'll see. I don't think the Falcons are going to do anything crazy this year. They're probably going to stick in the bottom of this rankings, but I do think that they're better than the first teams that we just talked about.
Yeah, I would agree. Yep. So moving on, number 28, you got the New York Jets moving up from 32. Big comeback victory against the Cleveland Browns. As you talked about, young quarterbacks, theirs isn't playing. They have the old vet Joe Flacco, and he looked pretty good. I mean, I get it. You know, you're playing the Browns, and the Browns have pretty good defense, but the Jets are 28. Again, the Jets have a lot of really young, good pieces. Garrett Wilson, a guy we both liked in the draft process, he showed out this game. The running game is solid. Right. You know, we'll see what Rob Saleh can do with that team. I like Rob Saleh as a head coach. When Zach Wilson gets back, maybe this team has another level to get to. But for now, raising up 4 spots going into week 2, pick up a W, and everybody thought you might go winless this year. Good showing, showing for the Jets here. That's what I like to see from this team that's been in the cellar for so long. So good for them. 28's a good spot.
It'll be interesting to see what happens when Zach Wilson comes back for them. So probably might be, I don't know for sure. I think it's our biggest drop here, and it's the Colts, who started 0-1-1. You know, this was obvious. They lost 24-0 to Jacksonville, which Jacksonville is not yet that good of a team. They're showing some potential here now with Trevor Lawrence, but I wouldn't say they're that team yet. And the Colts losing that bad is a big deal. I know they didn't have Michael Pittman. I know they didn't have their other backup wide receiver, or their second wide receiver. They were missing some pieces, I know, but 24-0 is bad. And then the week before, when you did have those players, you guys tied the game with Houston Texans, who are our last team on our rankings right now. You know, I had higher expectations for Colts. They did make the playoffs last year, right?
No, I think
Never mind. They missed playoffs. They should have made playoffs.
Same team
yeah, it was an embarrassing miss. It was an embarrassing miss. So they should have made playoffs last year, and this year, you know, even without Wentz, that's following them into this season, I guess. It's just not looking good for the Colts. So I could see them kind of turning it around a little bit, but we'll see.
Number 26, the team that beat the Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars, they've been close in both of their games. They had a nice little, they were ahead of Washington week 1. They let Washington come back and beat them. But this week, they put the bang thing on the Colts. We're finally maybe starting to see the Trevor Lawrence we all thought we would see coming into last year. James Robinson had a big run. It's nice to see him. I felt bad for him when they drafted Travis Etienne. So good to see James Robinson playing well. Yeah, we'll see what the Jaguars can do. Like I said, Trevor Lawrence, I think Doug Peterson's going to be the right guy for him, much better than Urban Meyer was. I think now we'll finally start to see the growth of Trevor Lawrence. I'm looking forward to that. I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. I think a lot of people did going into last year.
Right.
Yeah. You know, first win of the season, 1-1 in a weak division. Maybe the Jaguars have a shot. Who knows? So but 26 is a good spot for them. 5 spots up. I like it.
Now down, Seattle Seahawks. They beat the Denver Broncos week 1 Geno Smith had a pretty good game. And even this game wasn't terrible for him against the 49ers this week. But I think it shows a lot more of what's going on in Denver. And I'm starting to think Denver is, we'll dive into them a little bit later, but Denver isn't as good as we think or thought they would be going into the season. So Seattle losing against a team that lost to the Bears last week. I know everything was crazy with the weather and everything in Chicago, but still Seattle just does not look that good. The run game is going nowhere. Geno Smith, he didn't do too bad, but still an interception, 197 yards. His completion percentage is still pretty good, 24 for 30. They're not finding DK a lot. So we went into the season thinking that they weren't going to be that great of a team. And I still don't think they were, even with their victory over Denver week 1.
Yeah. So fair points there. Number 24, the Washington Commanders. Carson Wentz putting up pretty good numbers. They have their 1 win last week. This week, we're not so lucky against the Detroit Lions. Nobody had high hopes for this team coming into the season. Curtis Samuels looked pretty good. The running backs have looked okay. Defensively, they really want to get Chase Young, Chase Young, right? Is that his name?
Yep.
They really want to get Chase Young back. They got Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen on the defensive line as well. They have pieces, but it's just, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't think they have a shot in their division. So Carson Wentz, I think he's a 1-year fill-in for now. But yeah, kind of a disappointing showing for Washington so far this season.
Yeah.
Speaking of disappointing.
So far. Speaking of disappointing, a team that came into this year, with Derrick Henry, with Tannehill, who's been playing pretty solid in the last since he's been a Titan, and then a good defense, a really good defense from last year. Obviously, the loss AJ Brown, and it's starting to look like that loss is a lot bigger deal than, honestly, I think most people thought it was a big deal. A lot bigger deal than I think the Titans thought it was going to be. Even though Treylon Burks has kind of stepped up and he might be that guy, I think they need to continue going towards him. But Tannehill's just been ruining everything for them. The first week they lost to the Giants, which again, maybe the Giants are stepping up this year a little bit here under the ball. But this week they just got completely blasted by the Bills, which, it's the Bills, it's Josh Allen. I'm not too surprised, but Ryan Tannehill, 117 yards and 2 interceptions. I don't know if he probably got taken out of the game because it was getting blown out of proportion, but something felt a little bit kind of benchy to me about that. Almost like, I don't think he's that far from Malik Willis taking his job potentially if he keeps playing that way. Mm-hmm. I think it was more of a statement like Tannehill, you gotta watch yourself a little bit because Malik Willis comes in and he is exciting. He's still rookie, still making mistakes. I watched a little bit of him. Vikings game started, so couldn't watch too much, but yeah, Titans are definitely not looking great so far. No. Starting 0-2 especially. Yeah.
And Derrick Henry looks like he's lost a step. That foot injury is still bothering him, I think. He's not fully back from that yet. So, number 22, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this week losing to the Patriots 17-14. Just there hasn't been a lot from that offense. And the defense, now that TJ Watt's not there right now, defense, they have, of course, Minka Fitzpatrick is back there and everything, which is solid for them. They still have Cam Hayward, who's still a menace on the defensive line. But offensively, Mitch Trubisky, they just can't get anything going. I don't think they're going to bench him quite yet. But speaking of rookies, Kenny Pickett will get his shot this season. Yeah. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. But there's a lot of talent on this team. Najee Harris, you got Deontay Johnson, you got George Pickens, you got Claypool. There's a ton of talent on this team, and you're just not under Mitch Trubisky at this point. We're not seeing it right now. Again, Mike Tomlin's their head coach. I expect him to get it figured out. I expect them to at least be in contention for playoffs at the end of the year. We'll see what happens, but man, this team just looks like it's missing something, and I think that's something that they're missing is TJ Watt, unfortunately. Yeah, so
definitely, and the quarterback situation, pretty much. Yep. I think they need to get Pickett in there, but so now another team that dropped and only 3, just because there's been a lot of like solid or above average or teams that we thought were going to be good that just have not started good, and we had no choice to drop them. The Browns lost to the Jets this week. They let Jets come back on them. But the reality is, I still like a lot of the talent on the Browns. Jacoby Brissett, I think he can come in and not be the worst quarterback to step in to run your team. And, with the idea of Watson still going to be there sometime later this year, you still have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb, 3 touchdowns. And they actually used Amari Cooper with 9 receptions and 101 yards this week with 1 touchdown. They still have tons of talent on defense. So it's a team that seems like the talent's there. It's still the Browns. I don't see them going too far up, but I think we got them at like a right spot right here for now, even though they lost to the Jets and they let the Jets come back on them. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Number 20, moving on up 4 spots, is the New York Giants. Now, Daniel Jones is not their quarterback of the future. I'm going to toss it out there right now. But this team, Saquon Barkley, I don't think he looked that great this game. What did he end up having for yardage? Do you know?
I know he started off really slow. I'm pretty sure he ended up with around like 90 yards.
He had, looking at it here.
21 carries for 72 yards. So that's definitely not good. And it was worse than that.
Yeah.
I think he must have broke out for one later on in the game or something like
that. But yeah, so Daniel Jones not their quarterback, but for receivers, Sterling Shepard, you got Darius Slayton, you still have Kadarius Toney over there. There's some talent here, and I think Brian Daboll is the right head coach. I know we liked him a lot coming from Buffalo. there's a lot to like about this New York Giants team. I think. I think eventually they're going to come back down to earth. Probably lose a couple of games here coming up, but starting out 2-0, you got to give them credit for that. It's not huge wins, but overall, like they're gutting out wins. And that's all you can ask for from a team that nobody expected to be that good this year. So under a rookie head coach, yeah, good for the Giants, moving up 4 spots.
Definitely. And then we're up to the Patriots. So last week they lost to the Miami Dolphins, right? That's who it was.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously we see how Miami can play this year. So I think Miami is just obviously a better team than the Patriots this year. They still have Bill Belichick in that defense. And then this week they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers that beat Cincy last week, even though Pittsburgh doesn't have TJ Watt. It wasn't a crazy impressive win, and you can still tell that, you have to be a little bit worrisome about Mac Jones, at least from following the hype from last year. So far he hasn't been blowing the top off or anything like that. 252 yards, touchdown, interception. I think last week he had like an interception or something, and the wide receiver is still not great. We're not seeing much from Devontae Parker yet, which I was surprised. I had a feeling that he was going to be the almost either 1 or 2 for their wide receivers, and the running backs are doing solid, I guess. Ramondre Stevenson, I'd like to see more of him, but yeah, I mean, overall, it's just another team that just doesn't have that much talent, especially on offense, but you just have Bill Belichick there in his defense and everything else he just does to keep this team solid, especially without Tom Brady. So
right, for sure. Moving on to number 18, you have the Denver Broncos. Now, Nathaniel Hackett is proving to be not the best head coach so far to start. Thank God the Vikings didn't hire him. Russell Wilson this offense hasn't been able to be unleashed like I thought it would be under Russell Wilson. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy got hurt. Cortland Sutton had a pretty solid game, though, which was nice. But outside of that, the running backs haven't been utilized as much as I thought they would. The defense, while still, they're still holding people to not a lot of points. There's a lot of talent on that defense, but I don't know. I expected with Russell Wilson coming onto this team, I expected a much more explosive Denver team. And unfortunately, we're just at this point, just not seeing it. I mean, they barely beat the Houston Texans. So I don't know. And losing to Seattle last week, it's not a good look for a team that came into the season in a stacked division as well. They're falling behind. They're falling behind fast in that division, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll see if they can turn it around. But so far, not so good under Russell Wilson and new head coach Nathaniel Hackett.
Surprising, actually. So let's talk about surprising. The Detroit Lions made a big boost this week. This is probably a slide I should have let Casey talk about just because
I like Detroit.
He's creating this man crush on the Lions for whatever reason. But I get it. They came back quite a bit against Eagles last week, which was pretty impressive, but still you were getting smacked earlier on, so I'll take that with a grain of salt. But going into this week against against Washington, who isn't a terrible team. They do have talent, and the Lions smoked them. The Redskins, the Commanders kind of came back on them a little bit towards the end, but it was over. And they have so much talent on offense with DeAndre Swift, who for whatever reasons can get 5 carries and at least 1 50-yard run, 2 50-yard runs every single game. And Amon St. Brown, dude, he is a beast. That guy is just always open, just a reception machine, good route running, everything. He's a huge surprise from last year. And I mean, there's a lot of talent. Not just that, but the rookie from their second overall pick, which was our favorite to be first overall pick. Hutchinson got 3 sacks in the first half, which is insane. And, we're going to have a game. We play the Lions this week, and we're going to have our preview for that. And it'll be, we're going to probably talk about Hutchinson and having to actually worry about a bigger pass rush this year, especially after a game against the Eagles, where the blitzing and the pass rush kind of hurt us a little bit. But yeah, man, kudos to Lions for kind of creating that talent. I think they're only going to be able to go as far as Goff, which is shitty for them and good for us. But yeah, man.
Yeah. Number 16, New Orleans Saints dropping 1 spot. Obviously, Jameis Winston and 4 fractures in his back does not sound good. As you saw, he was not comfortable in the pocket. A couple opportunities to take off and make some runs for first downs. He did not take advantage of them. No Alvin Kamara in this game. Michael Thomas ended up picking up a little bit near the end there, but yeah, it was not a good look. They held Tampa Bay in check as long as they could, but at the end, Jameis Winston got desperate. Obviously, like I said, not healthy, slinging the ball around, threw a couple interceptions, much to the chagrin of my fantasy team. The Saints, I don't know. With a fully healthy Jameis, I think they're much better. But with the injury, I think that's huge. So I think dropping a spot, that's about the best they could hope for. We'll see what they do. We'll see if that back heals up on its own. But as of right now, doesn't look great. And there's a lot of talent on this team. I think the coaching is coaching. Who knows how Dennis Allen's going to do over there? But not a good game. Not a good game overall.
No. Yeah, no, I want to see. We'll go and I keep trying to talk about teams that we have higher on this list, but you just want to see Tampa Bay get their shit together, and they have so much talent on that offense.
Yeah.
Anyways, to the Raiders, they started 0-2, so they're our second highest 0-2 team on here. The next one we'll talk about, but they just came into the season with so much hype, trading with Devonta Adams, with his old college quarterback and Derek Carr. We were expecting big things out of them, and I'm related through marriage to a lot of Raiders fans, so they definitely were pumped up about that. And it's just kind of disappointing so far. The first week we saw a lot from Derek Carr. You saw a lot, especially after Aaron Rodgers against us, and you're missing, or from Devonta Adams, you're missing Devonta Adams. They only lost to the Chargers, I think, by like 5 points, but this week they'll let the Cardinals make a massive comeback. They did not look good. The Raiders were about to make a big boost on our list, but let Kyler Murray run all around the field and score these crazy extra points, or 2-point conversions. But the one thing I want to get into, back to Devonta Adams real quick, is he only had 2 catches for 12 yards. It was a touchdown, but 2 catches. How do you have Devonta Adams and you have 2 catches for 12 yards? That's not good. I don't like to see that. I think the Raiders are a little bit overrated coming into this season, and we'll see going forward, but it was not pretty from them to allow something like that to happen.
And like they did try to use some of the other receivers, but unfortunately the other receivers fumbled twice, and one of them was the one that ended up being the touchdown that won the game for Arizona. But moving on, number 14, you got the Dallas Cowboys. Now they took a huge hop here. They were so low in our initial power rankings because we didn't know how they were going to be without Dak Prescott. Yeah, apparently pretty good. They came out. They it wasn't the prettiest game ever, but when you can come out and beat a team like the Bengals, the team that was in the Super Bowl last year, you got to give them props. Cooper Rush. How many times did Tony Romo and Jim Nantz have to reference last year's game against the Vikings? Cooper Rush came out and played pretty well, given the circumstances. You finally saw CeeDee Lamb get unleashed. Noah Brown, he looked solid. Running backs, Tony Pollard looked much better than Zeke. Again, much to the chagrin of my fantasy team. Dallas, I don't know. Again, who knows if this is all sustainable? The Bengals have looked pretty bad up to this point. But we'll see. We'll see what the Cowboys can do. Again, I think Philadelphia is favored to win that division, but stay afloat till Dak gets back and see if he can make some noise going into the home stretch of the season. We'll see what they can do.
Yep. Speaking of the Bengals, Joe Burrow, one of my fantasy quarterbacks, who has been disappointing. It would say disappointing. He does seem to get a little bit some points right at the end for me. So it's like the first 3 quarters, he has like 5 points, and all of a sudden he starts getting somewhere. I don't know, man. It's just that whole team is starts and ends this year with their offensive line. It's getting absolutely blown up. Joe Burrow has to, I don't know the stat for sure, but he has to have gotten taken the most sacks this season so far.
Easily, yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much in they're the highest 0-2 team that we have. There's just so much talent on that team, especially on offense, with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, even Tyler Boyd, but they just cannot get things rolling, especially early. And Joe Burrow, 199 yards and 1 touchdown. A guy like him, 6 sacks, by the way. A guy like him, he should almost always be passing 300 yards. At least he had 0 interceptions compared to 3 last year or last week. Jamar Chase is still a beast, but he still didn't do that great. I just don't know why they're doing so bad, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
it was another bad loss to a Cooper Rush. I mean, I get it, losing to Cooper Rush. It happened to us last year, but again, you lost to Cooper Rush. You were in the Super Bowl last year. It's not looking good for you.
No.
So
yeah, it's weird. It's really weird, and
hard to put them down this far, but
right. And with the way the Ravens are playing in that division, it might be tough to make that comeback. Number 12, Arizona Cardinals, moving up from 17. So a lot of people give this team a lot of shit. A lot of people give Kyler Murray a lot of shit. Their head coach, I don't know if he's Cliff Kingsbury. I don't buy into him. Kyler Murray, though, give him as much crap as you will. He's the reason this team is ever even competitive. The things he can do on that football field are pretty spectacular. He just has no help. Marquise Brown, I don't like Marquise Brown. I've never thought he's a good receiver. I think he's a good number 2. They're missing that number 1 threat, which they'll get back when DeAndre Hopkins comes back. He's getting a little old now. We'll see what he does when he gets back from his injury. But is Rondale Moore even playing right now? And if he is,
I don't think he's been injured.
Yeah. Zach Ertz, he had a decent game this last week. Running back wise, I don't even know who they have anymore. James Conner, who actually went out with an injury. Defensively, they're not that great. They got a couple nice pieces there. They got Isaiah Simmons. But yeah, I mean, Kyler Murray is what makes that team go. People like to give him shit for the studying clause in his contract, but I think he earned a nice Sunday evening of playing the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 beta after that game, and I hope he enjoyed himself.
Right.
But number 12, I think, is a fair spot for Arizona. Well, I think they'll end up dropping eventually here because it's just, I don't know if it's sustainable for one guy to carry you like that when you don't have the talent around him. But
once DeAndre Hopkins comes back, who knows what happens. And then we're to the 49ers, a team that came in with all this hype. They made it to the NFC Championship last year. And then they got I wouldn't say their butts but they lost to the Bears week 1, which was a terrible loss in terrible conditions. We know, and Trey Lance, some of that was on him. He didn't look like the quarterback that we've all been waiting to see, even us as Viking fans, just because he's a Minnesota boy. And we just excited for his talent. Unfortunately, how early was it? Was it like the first quarter of this game? First quarter of this game, he broke his ankle, and he is out for season. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, just takes off right where he left off. Now you're looking at almost like the same San Francisco team that came in that made it to the NFC Championship last year, and he helped them whoop Seattle. I don't think Seattle's that good of a team, so I kind of still take a grain of salt, but this team has all the talent from last year. I don't see why they would do much worse, and Jimmy Garoppolo's just that really good game managing quarterback. He's nothing insane. He's not going to carry a team on his back really, but he wins. He's a winner. So I could see them continue going up from this spot potentially, but from a straight talent and just a straight talent standpoint, I'd say this is a good spot.
Number 10, Green Bay Packers. They don't move at all. You beat the Bears. Congratulations. That's it.
So now we get to this team. Last week 5, we had to drop them. I mean, we're trying to be non-biased with this whole Viking power ranking thing, and I feel like 9's a solid score. I think some people might put them a little bit lower than this. I do think the Eagles are just that good. We also had some really bad opportunities right off the bat. The Vikings got whooped around by the Eagles, but we somehow, we got that blocked field goal, the interception, big Irv Smith drop, and the 3 interceptions by Kirk Cousins. I mean, you take a couple away from them, a couple of those, and give us points. We were in that game, so I'm not going to drop us too far, but it was a pretty bad game, and yeah. I feel like we're probably being a little bit generous, even to giving us 9 after a game like that. But let's hopefully we just bounce back and whoop on the Lions, and we just take that as it was just a bad game, bad scheming, something that we weren't expecting early. KOC is a new head coach at Donatello. I think this is his first time running a defense completely. I think, right? Like a straight.
Sure, I don't know.
It looked like it at least. So hopefully they come into these next games and kind of game plan a little bit and be a little bit more flexible with their game plan as well. Yeah. But yeah, Vikings number 9 this week. Hopefully we can turn things around and then march our way back up to at least where we had them. So
yeah, let's hope so. Moving on to number 8, you have the Miami Dolphins. That was impressive. I still like Baltimore. We still obviously haven't seen them yet, so we still think Baltimore is a superior team. But Tua, got to give the guy credit. You know, the arm strength isn't there with him. That's still pretty apparent, but he's gritty, and everybody knew that in seeing how he played in Alabama. You know, coming in that national title game late and bringing him back, which might reference that later when we get into Jalen Hurts as well. But man, he looks solid. 6 touchdowns. He started out pretty slow with the 2 picks, but he ended up 6 touchdowns to come back and end up winning that game. Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I didn't know how Tyreek Hill was going to look coming into this year without Patrick Mahomes. He's perfectly fine. Him and Jalen Waddle are fast becoming one of the top wide receiver duos in the entire NFL. Defensively, no, not a lot to write home about there. Running backs, I know they kind of have a committee system with Edmonds and Mostert, and Mike Gesicki there as well. Like, this is a really good football team, and I think, I don't know. I mean, unfortunately for them, they play in the same division as the Buffalo Bills, which hurts, but you know, good for Miami. I think they're looking good. We'll see if Tua can keep it up. I love Mike McDaniel. I think he's the right guy to lead that team. He seems like a Florida dude. So, Miami Dolphins moving up number 8. Congratulations.
And then we're to the Rams, last year's Super Bowl champs. I'm sure we'll say this every single time we go into their power rankings. This is a confusing team because week 1, they got absolutely destroyed by the Bills, which kind of makes sense. The Bills are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. It's no secret. They're killing it. But so, I mean, I guess, can't be too surprised that the Bills beat them, but they are the Super Bowl champs. They shouldn't have got lost by that much. And then this week, they were they were way ahead. I'm losing I forget which team they just beat. Huh?
They played Atlanta.
Yeah. So they were up big on Atlanta, only to kind of let them come back. I'm sure they pulled off the gas pedal a little bit. So that was a huge bounce back game. And at the very end of the day, they still got Cooper Kupp. They still have Stafford as long as he's not throwing interceptions. They still have Aaron Donald. They still have so much talent on the team. The only thing that they're really missing is KOC. Except for maybe this last game against the Eagles as much, but still. So we're just leaving them at 7. They're kind of a confusing team, and they're a team that obviously could push themselves back towards the top, but so far it hasn't been super impressive. Yeah. But they've also, it was against the Bills, and then they did whoop the Falcons. So we'll see.
Yeah. Number 6, Baltimore Ravens. They don't move at all from last week. Obviously, like I said, we still love Baltimore. I think they're a really good team. They're well coached. John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL. Lamar Jackson is showing us this year that he can play. He runs around still, but he's throwing the ball really well. Rashad Bateman, Minnesota Gophers, Sky Umar roll the boat, playing really well so far this season, proving to be that number 1 target on that team. Devin Duvernay, I know he was forced out of the game. He's looked really good on special teams and as a receiver. Running back wise, we still haven't gotten to see J.K. Dobbins. That's going to add a whole nother level to them when he gets back. Defensively, they're solid as well. Obviously, this week you can't really say that. They let the Dolphins come back on them, but there's still a lot to like about this Ravens team. And with the way the rest of their division is playing, might be an easy division championship for the Baltimore Ravens. So we will see it. Number 6, good spot for them.
And then we're to the Eagles. We boosted them up 5. Obvious reasons. They beat the Vikings. Any team that can possibly beat the Vikings probably deserves a jump in any rankings. But for real, honestly, though, I think Jalen Hurts surprised me big time. I did not think. See, I don't know if it's as much Jalen Hurts, if it's our bad game planning from the defense. We were leaving guys like wide open off the line of scrimmage. We're playing prevent defense almost the entire game, but still, I mean, you got to give it up for Jalen Hurts. He ended up with, let's see, what was his stats on this? Should have probably already had this up, but
he had like 300 some yards, didn't he? Something crazy like that.
300, I think it was 333 yards, but the big one was he was 26 for 31, and we're talking about a guy that is known more for running, and that's all we were worried about. That at least that's what it seemed, even though he still threw a big touchdown on us. He had his touchdown interception that was tipped. the run game. I don't know, man. I don't know whoever's calling offensive plays there, but last night it just felt like they were calling the perfect plays at the perfect time every single time. They got Devontae Smith more involved now. I think he had like 6 receptions or something like that, especially early on. A.J. Brown is a huge upgrade. Tennessee's missing them. The Eagles are loving that. And then their defense, Darius Slay might be the best cornerback in the league. Any cornerback that can do that to Justin Jefferson, I don't know. And
he was getting in his head for sure.
Yeah, there's something going on there. Also, Kirk Cousins' favorite receiver in the league, probably. But no, jokes aside, man, Eagles, they're a good team, and they're the team that we actually thought maybe made the most improvement this offseason, and they're proving it now.
Yeah.
So I think they're deserving of being number 5. And if Jalen Hurts can continue playing like that and look what he did yesterday, we'll see if he can be that consistent. Man, I don't know. This team could keep climbing.
Yeah. Hate to say it. Fly, Eagles, fly. Congratulations.
We're coming back for you, though.
Last 4 are going to be unchanged here. Number 4, we do have the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll see what happens with that rib cartilage fracture. And Justin Herbert, the way he came out there, though, and still chucked that touchdown in obvious pain. You got to give him credit. That's tough, but also at the same time, you should probably have pulled him. That's, pretty dangerous. Leave him out there. Too much talent on this team for them to drop it all after a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. You have obviously a quarterback. You have 2 really good receivers once Keenan Allen gets back. Austin Eckler, if they finally just start using him more for my fantasy team, thank you. You got him. Their defense still has a lot of solid pieces. So the Chargers are fine. They'll be okay, especially when Herbert gets healed up. But he had extra time this week to get healed up. So I think number 4 is a good spot for them. So yeah, unchanged.
Mm-hmm. And then the Buccaneers, again, unchanged. This is a team that it's been kind of hard to determine their rankings as well. Like, at the end of the day, they have Tom Brady, but they haven't really impressed me, at least. They are 2-0, but they haven't really impressed me. They beat the Cowboys in another close game, and then even against the Saints last week, it was pretty close for most of the game. Obviously, it did always seem like the Buccaneers had the bigger momentum, but it's just the offense, man. With all that talent on offense, we're not seeing a lot. Tom Brady, 18 for 34, 190 yards and a touchdown. Lenny, 24 carries for 65 yards. He did promise, I have him in fantasy, he did promise a touchdowns going forward, so that would be nice. And then Mike Evans, they didn't have Julio Jones last week. They don't have a Godwin. Russell Gage did play. I thought he was injured. Was he injured last week, I think? But Mike Evans is suspended for 1 game for absolutely destroying Latimer, which I don't blame him because that guy can kind of be a bitch sometimes. But yeah, man, I think we need to see that offense rolling. Otherwise, I could see them kind of falling on this list. But it is Tom Brady, and as soon as you doubt that guy, he puts everything on his back, and he ends up having an MVP season. So
right, for sure. So we'll see what they do. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. Got a little dicey in that game. They came back from behind against the Chargers. Yeah, Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes, with Andy Reid. They're going to find themselves probably in the hunt for the Super Bowl, as we all know. I don't know why I think, there's a lot of talk with Patrick Mahomes. Is he overrated or whatnot? I don't know where those talks come from. I've heard those before. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes, and this Kansas City Chiefs team is still one of the top teams in the NFL, obviously, since we have them at number 2. So,
and I mean, there's not much to say here. No. The Bills are by far, in 2 weeks anyways, by far the most impressive team in the NFL, just going through everybody. Last year's champs, no problem, destroyed. Josh, it's just the rise of Josh Allen is so impressive because he was just a raw talent. He's just an example of a raw talent coming out of a small school and just to slowly turn into this dominant player. 317 yards, 4 touchdowns in about 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we got Stephon Diggs, who obviously old Viking. Man, you got to love what's going on with him and with the Bills and his stardom, because I still love Stephon Diggs. Obviously, if we didn't get Justin Jefferson out of that, I probably wouldn't like Stephon Diggs very much, but I'm allowed to now because Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league. But man, 12 catches, 148 yards, and 3 touchdowns from Stephon Diggs. I also didn't realize James Cook had 11 carries for 53 yards. I don't know if that was garbage time or what, but I know the one hole on that team, in my opinion, is probably the running backs, which doesn't really matter when you have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. But if they had a pretty good running back, which could be James Cook, because I'm not banking on Singletary. I think we kind of know what Singletary and Zach Moss is. Man, if James Cook can kind of be that guy for them, that team is just even scarier. So
yeah, for sure. So, but yeah, that'll do it for our week 3 power rankings. Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.